Welcome, everybody. Glad you could make it. We'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda? Just to be sure that on the agenda I sent out originally, I had the next meeting date wrong. So it is July 10th would be our next regular scheduled meeting, if you don't have that corrected on your agenda. Okay, being none, we'll open up the meeting for public comment. Anybody have anything they want to address before we move on? Okay, being none. What I'm going to do is recess our regular meeting and open our public hearing regarding a special use permit. The special use is we're here to get public input regarding a proposed communications tower that's located 9565 North Cut Road. It's parcel number 72004-015-008-0320. Just so we're clear, the Planning Commission is bound by rules and laws when making decisions on this application. In order to conduct a hearing within a reasonable time and to keep the subject at hand, you're asked to observe the following rules. After a staff presentation, the applicant will state her case or his case fully and furnish us with enough pertinent information concerning the property. Those who favor the proposed change will be heard next, and those opposed will be heard last. Each person making a statement will be asked to state their name and address. If possible, refrain from repeating what has been said before you, and please do not make comments on personalities or character of any persons involved. Be as factual as possible. We, the Planning Commission, reserve the right to question any speaker. All statements and questions must be directed to me, the chairperson. The Planning Commission will or will not make a decision on this matter at today's meeting following the closing of the hearing. So, your name? Yeah. Are you with the communication tower? Oh, there it is. Okay, I didn't know which one. Would you like to come up and just kind of give us an idea of what you're proposing and
Staff of White Rock Towers and Verizon Wireless as well. They are the carrier that is going to be co-locating on the 190-foot monopole tower. It is basically going to be fenced in 64 by 64 fenced in area. It is leased, however, for 100 by 100. In the event we have more carriers that want to go on the tower and co-locate, then we have enough room to be able to place their equipment at the base of the tower. We can have landscaping there, but I don't think we need any landscaping, being that it's very heavily treed and it's set back from the road quite a ways. I think 687 feet, approximately, something like that. And basically, Verizon is the one that wants to go on this tower. The engineers, I've been doing this for 25 plus years. The engineers give us a map and they say, this is the area we need, this is our hole, we don't have any service, we need you to go out and identify a location to place a cell tower. So that's what I did. They gave me the map. I looked and searched the area and, was able to find a location that is suitable for a wireless communication facility, to place it someplace where it's not so visible to the road, that it is set back, like I said, approximately 687 feet. If you have any other questions, I will answer as much as I can. Robert LaBelle could not attend today, but he will be on the July 20th meeting for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
So I'll open the hearing up to the to questions or statements. Come on up, and we're recording this, so we need you to speak into the microphone and so forth.
I actually am not sure if they're proposing this right next to our property, but I got a letter saying it was going to be 300 feet from it. So is it next to the dollar store? Yes. Okay. Our property is right up, butted up against it. And
Can you give us your name and address?
Roberta Phillips, and I live at 2691 South Crest Drive. Our home is right there, and then right behind us, there's like a private road. And we own that property about we own the property on Meadowlark right up, I guess, 300 feet from where they're proposing this to go.
Yeah, that letter would have been, that letter goes out to everybody within 300 feet of the proposed use.
Okay, well, that's me. I thought it was residential property.
The property that
They want to put this on.
that tower's on is commercial at this time. It was rezoned a couple months ago.
Okay, and I'm not sure, how do you go about rezoning it without, it doesn't matter what we feel about something 300 feet from our property that we plan to build a home on?
No, you should have got a notice. I mean, it had to go through all these same steps that we're doing tonight.
Okay, I guess, like, is there going to be a parking lot there? What?
No. So basically, the wireless communication facility is basically manned by one little parking. If barely ever visited, maybe once a month, if that, probably not even that. They just go out there for maintenance. If something happens, they need to come in and like change something out. But like I said, there's really no parking lot. It's just made for a little one parking spot for a car to come in. The easement is pretty much already there, so the car can come in, do their thing and leave. They don't spend hardly any time there. Like I said, it's pretty much like it just sits there. There's no action, no activity there, no people there. It's just the tower by itself.
Will it be a 5G tower?
Yes, it's 5G.
Okay. And does anybody do any, yeah.
I need you to wait till she's done.
He's with me.
I know, but
Okay,
you're at the mic.
okay.
Okay. There's a site plan. I wanted to show you these maps around.
Well, I think he should see this also.
Come on up. You can sit here together. Grab a chair and just bring it up.
Tall,
Yeah, it's a monopole, it's just a pole.
200 feet tall.
Less than two, maybe 195, it will not be lit. Unless FAA requests it to be lit, but as of right now.
And there's not an option to put it across the street in those woods?
Well, we have to follow the zoning ordinance and it has to specify certain locations for the wireless communication facility. Being that it's commercially zoned, that was the best option for us. And like I said, there's certain areas that the engineers want to be, service the area the way it needs to be serviced. And that area was the number one area. I have also, but I have a letter from the RF engineer also. I can give you a copy of it. He's the actual engineer that describes, you can have it. You can have this letter.
I think so. This is North.
Dollar. you know,
Oh, that's Dollar General, okay.
Okay,
there's the landscaping.
We would be here or here,
where's the Dollar General, Rob?
right there.
No, our property,
No, here's Northcutt Road. See Northcutt Road right here? Dollar General.
Subdivision.
so it, okay. All right, hold on, I'm confused. So can she come up?
So Meadowlark Road, I think would be.
So this is Northcutt Road, this is the Dollar General,
Mhm.
and is it gonna be on
Towers right.
this side?
It'll be right here.
And yeah, our property is,
Probably right here. Underneath that.
it can't be, that's,
Okay, this is Meadowlark Drive. This is that subdivision. The people with the house for sale
is back here.
They're down here.
Okay, so this would be our property.
No, it'd be this one.
You will, but
Honey, the dollar
Yeah.
store is right there.
Right, right. And you know how there's a lot.
So this
And then,
lot,
and then our lot.
okay, Dollar General, and then our lot, you can go right through and cut through to the Dollar General.
Well, yeah, it would be this way if you cut through to the Dollar General.
You sure?
Yeah, that's the landscaping, all the landscaping company there.
So this is, and,
this is vacant.
okay,
And
So-
is this all become commercial right here? Okay,
Yeah, everything that's in this grade is commercial. This is
okay,
the landscaping company,
okay.
and you have this lot. And then you have the Dollar General. So this is residential, and this piece is residential.
Yeah.
what about like radiation or anything from it?
Well, that's my concern because 5G is a concern.
Now, for the FCC, they've done tons of studies on this. Even if you go on the FCC website, basically you cannot discriminate a cell tower because of radiation or any kind of health hazards.
It's no dependent on a modem, smart
Cell
TV,
phone,
I
whatever.
mean, it's no different than any of that.
Okay. Well, how far would it, like 300 feet from our property would be like how far is 3? It's okay. it's all right. I'm just, yeah, we got fine service right now.
So this is the Dollar.
That helps way better, yeah.
This is the Dollar General. That tower will be here.
Behind the Dollar General or next door to it?
Next door on this lot, this commercial property. right
Okay, and our lot, I believe is right
here.
here.
Right, yeah, this is gonna be over here on this.
So it's gonna be over a little.
South of you, yeah. It won't butt your property.
Okay,
It's just within the 300 feet, that's why.
all right, I'm okay with it, yeah.
So, I mean, you get a glance at it, but I mean, they're all around my home and I drive by, I don't even hate them.
Do you, like, are you gonna keep some of those trees up? You're not gonna knock down the whole lot? Okay,
And how high is the tower again?
It's
under
gonna
200 feet.
be 195 and it will be able to, handle other, Verizon definitely is going on it.
Other people will put things up.
AT&T can go, once it's up, you'll see, you'll probably get more carriers on there. I don't know if you have T-Mobile or AT&T or.
Verizon.
Yeah, so this is the reason why we're here, because Verizon had a lot of complaints in this area, and we're just trying to get better service for that.
We have great
Well, I
service.
know we already get pretty good service, and we're Verizon. So we don't need it, but I suppose that we'd have better service with it, but.
I talked to some people out here when I was driving today to make the meeting.
We've never.
Oh, well, when I'm in the dollar store, I don't get service.
Yeah.
I don't really talk on my phone much in there, but. Okay. I mean, there's no way we can stop it anyway, right?
I mean,
You
What
can voice-
we do here, this hearing is to gather information, that's relative to the tower, to the special use that they're requesting. Our board, the planning commission, we don't make the final decision. The township board does. But what we do is gather up all the information, relative information regarding the tower, negative and positive. And then we submit a report to them. And with that, we usually submit our thoughts, our recommendation as a board to them. So it's not a done deal in the sense of the word.
I guess it's better.
The only thing I'm concerned about is if we have a 3 acre lot right there that we could sell off at some point. But if there's a lot of radiated energy coming right into that lot, we'd probably have a harder time selling that lot. It would decrease our property value. So I'm concerned about that.
Okay.
And who knows how much radiation is going to be added. AT&T,
They ran it, I mean, you can go online, I mean, there's no health hazards, you can't deny, it's all hard because of health issues, radiation. Like I said, they've done tons and tons of testing and
if it's going to be that close, can you put it on my lot and I'll make the money off it?
It's okay.
If I have to live with
guess.
it anyway, I'd rather gain something, but
I mean, there's no home on your lot.
no.
That's
Not
what I'm
yet.
saying.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you
I
for
guess
your,
it's better than a, construction company.
for your input.
There's nothing that's gonna make noise. Only time maybe kicks in is, let's say there's a power outage, nothing ever happens for wireless communication. I think they have a propane tank or generator that may kick in, and that's only if the site goes down. And that's the worst that if you hear anything at all, and that's when you leave for a day or half a day. But other than that, it's quiet. There's no noise at all.
You okay?
Yeah, again, I'm just concerned how much radiation we would get in that lot. I don't think anybody knows, huh?
Like I said, do your research. I mean, we've done all our research and like, if there isn't hardly any radiation at all, you can't deny South Harbor because of that reason. It's been known. I've been to so many zoning meetings and we've had this issue come up several times. And you can't deny a pellet for radiation reasons because like I said, they've done tons and tons of testing. And there's a website on it too, STC Wireless Communication, and you can get all of that documentation.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I'm just curious, like across the Cut River Road, next to the cemetery, is that commercial property at all?
That's state land. Okay. Well, thank you for your input. We appreciate you being here. Is there anybody else wants to speak regarding the tower?
Well, no one else owns the property around us either, so I don't, and the other people, they don't stay here year round, so.
Okay.
Are you gonna talk more about it or is it done?
Well, we're going to keep the hearing open for a few more minutes to see if anybody else shows up. You think? Okay. Okay, well, I make a motion that or not a motion, but I move that the public hearing be closed and we reopen our regular meeting. Thanks again. We will be discussing this as we go through our meeting. So if you did want to stick around, you could hear what we'd say. Oh, yeah. I get a motion to approve the minutes of our April 10th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Yeah, come on up to the mic.
The next meeting is scheduled for July 20th.
July 10th would be our next regular meeting.
Okay, and pertaining to the wireless communication facility?
If you're on the agenda,
Okay, so what we're discussing now is this just a discussion or is this
this is the public hearing that we're required to have because
Right.
it's a special use. Okay. What we need to move the whole thing forward would be the revised site plan from you guys
okay,
with the that list of stuff that we requested or at least a statement from you, a narrative,
so
why you didn't feel it was necessary or, that type of thing.
yeah, I sent the package in with the revisions and additional information. I don't know if Jason was able.
It came today and they all have a copy of it.
Oh, they do? Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I do have Robert LaBelle on Zoom. He was just asking to be unmuted if possible. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like to speak, Robert?
Yay. Hi, guys. I've been
Hello.
desperately trying to get into speak during the meeting, but it wouldn't let me unmute. I'm so very sorry. So we just want to clarify something. We were taken off the agenda for this evening. We knew that you're going to still have the public hearing on this, and that was fine. That's the reason why we have both of us, me remotely and my associate Claudine there in person. And what we were doing by doing that was to have your public hearing so that the next meeting we could then have be on the agenda and have a vote at that point for your recommendation to the township board. Is that what's going to happen? It's going to the vote on whether recommending it to the township board is going to happen at the next planning commission meeting, not at this meeting. Is that correct?
It could happen at this meeting. I don't know until we have that discussion. So it's a yes, it could happen, but it's not necessarily.
Okay. We were informed that because we were taken off the agenda, that it would not be a voting meeting as a result of it, because we're not on the agenda technically. There's a public hearing on it, but not our actual application is not on the hearing.
Actually, we probably will not. We won't vote to send it to the township because we haven't had a chance to go through your new site plan.
Okay.
So
Good.
we will need to do that and evaluate that and so forth, and then.
And that's fine. That's, we knew that you having sent it the thing, you wouldn't have the ability to do that. I'm just trying to make sure that, my lack of presence there, I was intending to be at the meeting where we're going to have a voting meeting. And I'm sorry that I'm not. It's just the situation where there was no way to change this as far as where I am right now. But I appreciate that that's the case. So yeah, I very much appreciate you being able to allow us an opportunity to be there, or at least me to be there when you do have a voting meeting.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
We'll plan on that.
Okay. I'd also just to add a little bit, when you look at the narrative, one of the things that's mentioned in there is the description of how the emissions from the tower work. So that was the reason for wanting to be able to give you a little bit of information. And it goes into the details. The Telecommunications Act does not permit a township to make a decision based on but based on environmental factors such as that. But I also gave you some information in that and at the last meeting to give you a little more detail about this. And the fact that it's just radio waves, it's not something unique in that respect, yada, yada, and to visit the American Cancer Society. But this is stuff that we can discuss at the next meeting in more detail. And after you've had the opportunity to look at the narrative. So I'll now shut up. Thank you very much. Appreciate your giving me an opportunity to quickly join in here quickly.
No problem. Greg, can you unmute?
Well, I've been on mute and there's no way to communicate. Typically there is through the chat with the person who's operating the equipment. And so I just wanted to say that I was hoping that at least the chat would be open such that if I had something to say, I could communicate with someone and you could know that. And the other thing I want to mention was I think it was just said that there were some things involving with the site plan revision that were received today. And I just wanted to say I haven't seen any of it. I don't know if there's any way to get that to me or not, but I would have interest in seeing that, obviously.
Yeah, I can get that to you, after the meeting, get you, we can email it to you.
Okay. And the other thing that I would say, and I'm probably going to be the only person involved with the rest of the meeting, but typically the camera can be set up so you can see the speakers from the audience. And it's not like that. And normally I would try to ask someone to do that, but I couldn't communicate in any way with the equipment operator. So I just wanted to mention if they could use the camera in a little bit different angle, it would be helpful.
Yeah, we probably just move that table forward would be the solution. 3 or 4 feet. Good point, Greg. I remember that when I was on there watching.
Thanks.
You got anything else at the moment?
No, that's it. Thanks. I just wanted to be able to communicate if I thought I had a question or something.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we just got the narrative and you've got this plan here. I'm not sure what. Okay, this document is just showing you where there are existing towers. Okay, because we were wondering about that. Yeah, it really illustrates that you are plugging a bit of a hole right there.
Yeah, that's referred to as a propagation map. It goes into detail in describing how the actual the radio waves propagate in order to show what kind of hole is being plugged. So yeah, that's exactly what it does.
Okay. Jason, have you had time to look at this paperwork?
Eventually, no. I just got all the hard copies today.
Okay, so you're not any more familiar than we are.
Sorry.
Would you guys want to go through this narrative? I do.
Yes.
Look at this until the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what they want. Why?
Am I allowed to talk anymore?
Only if I let you. So wait a minute. Actually, this part of the meeting, this is our regular meeting and typically the public has a front time and a back time.
Okay, so
But-
here we can see,
but-
yeah. Okay.
But we're flexible, okay? If you're patient, we're flexible. We just got this information today, and so we're trying to figure out what we need to do with it at this point. Okay, so we'll wait and come back with our questions on that. So Jim's question was, should we do a June meeting instead of waiting until July? Would you guys be able to do that?
Definitely.
Sure.
Yeah, because see, by the time you meet on July 10th, or I should say, the township board will be meeting. We wouldn't have time to get on our work session, which puts it all the way into August.
That puts you another month.
Yeah, so I think if you want a decision from the township board, you're gonna need to have this resolved
We need to split the
fairly
information.
soon, yeah.
So you're okay with that? Okay.
Yes, we particularly would be definitely up for that, doing it in June instead of July. Thank you very much. We would appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is everybody okay with that?
I'm good with that, yeah.
But
All right.
that, just to clarify, that doesn't mean there's a decision in June. It means a decision at the earliest would still be July.
You mean with regard to the township board? Yeah, we understand.
Okay.
June 12th is the second Thursday.
June 12th?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
We did it consistent with our Thursday.
Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to add to that?
Yeah, just a question. For the stuff that you sent us, was that everything then? So I haven't looked at it. I assume this site plan was the thing you updated to.
Yeah. That I was gonna give Jason, that I didn't add it to the package. It's just the letter from the Verizon RF engineer. So I'll go ahead and give it to him. I had he sent his best, but I still copy it. That's already.
Okay.
It covers everything that was in the letter that was sent to us that they said that we needed in addition. And we went through each of those things, went through the main thing they wanted was the narrative, of course, itself. And the narrative goes through some of these things, but in addition, there's a revised site plan, the propagation maps you've already discussed. There's a letter from the RF engineer talking about the need and how the process works. There's something we refer to as the fall zone letter, which is a letter from a structural engineer from the tower company that describes the fact that it's been stressed so that it doesn't fall. You'll see that exact same thing in the discussion from there. That was set up in the narrative itself. So yeah, the additional materials we provided to you, including the site plans revisions, are all as a response to the letter that we received.
Also the checklist, you should have a copy of the checklist that I kind of we went through that too. And
Correct. Sorry. Also the checklist. Yes.
checklist.
Okay. All right. Very good. Forgot her name already. Did you have a question?
Phillips?
Oh,
Miss Phillip, there you go.
if, like, when you have the tower there, can other commercial things go in that same area?
Only wireless communication. If it's AT&T, their ground space, their equipment on the base of the tower and their antenna at the top of the tower, wherever they're gonna have their antennas on the tower. But as for anything other than wireless, it's gonna be wireless communication, AT&T, Verizon for sure, possibly T-Mobile, and everything goes in the fenced area. Nothing goes outside of the fenced area.
So only communication stuff will be on the tower. Are you asking if anything else can go on the land? Easy bug.
Yeah.
It is a commercial property. The tower use is a special use. I'd have to
I think I can
believe
help
you
there a
could
little
have
bit.
another commercial business on there. It just depends
don't
on
think you
would impede your lease agreement.
I'm sorry, just to sort of add to this, in answer to your question, first thing, I don't think the zoning ordinance would permit us to have any other uses on there if the telecommunication use was already on there. It would be at multiple uses of the same parcel, which is not permitted under your ordinance. But more importantly, our lease permits us only to put a telecommunications tower and the compound that's shown there, the 100-foot by 100-foot compound. We can do no more under the lease than that.
And the like where it ends on Meadowlark Road, you have that whole lot there. Is that where you're, so like no one can come in and put another commercial anything?
No,
We have that whole lot back there.
Not on the parcel we're located.
Okay.
This is being permitted just for the tower.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah, nothing will go in between that tower and the residential property.
Saying that typically 300, 500 meters, which is 1,000 to 1,600 feet away from a tower for full safety. This is documented
I can't,
much closer than that, especially on the lot that we would want to be putting up for sale. So I gotta say, yeah, we're going out either or, yeah. So I gotta say, I'd be against it for that reason.
okay, so your main concern is the closeness of the tower for the radiation. Okay, duly noted. Yep.
Can I speak to that for a few moments? I'd like to try to reassure people a little bit here.
Sure,
if
go
that's all
ahead.
right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Just to let you know, there is radiation created by that tower, but that's because radiation is anything that radiates out from a point source. If I throw a pebble into a pool of water, that's radiation because it creates ripples throughout that. And those are waves. And anything that creates a wave function is considered a radiation source. The question here is whether it's ionizing or non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation, like X-rays and other things similar to that, does in fact have cause harm to human tissue. Non-ionizing radiation does not. Non-ionizing radiation includes things like radio waves. That's what's produced by this tower. The tower itself, it produces the same kind of radio waves that you're going to find in your portable radio, your car radio, your modem for your wireless router for your computer. Just about everything. It's the same thing that was invented by Marconi 150 years ago. It is literally the same stuff from that standpoint. And what I would advise you to do is to go to the American Cancer Society website. There is a description on there about the fact of radio waves from a tower and the fact that there has been no credible evidence to show that there is any kind of health effect from a radio tower. And the final thing, which we mentioned before, because it won't help you a lot in your circumstance, but it's that the federal law prohibits a township from considering environmental or health effects in making its decisions in connection with the tower. But I know that doesn't help a lot. And I'm not trying to, put you off in that respect. That's why I advise you to go to the American Cancer Society. They don't care. Their whole purpose in life is to tell you whether or not something causes cancer and try to help people who do in fact have cancer. So they don't have any skin in this game. They just simply are providing the facts. And I would encourage you to go to their website for that purpose in terms of looking at the same sort of thing. The bottom line is that the radiation or the strength, the power, the radio waves that are produced by a tower are only that which is necessary in order to be able to take it from one tower to another tower. And at ground level, it's considerably lower. In fact, kind of interesting part about it is the amount of radio waves produced by your cell phone itself is higher, much, much higher, literally thousands of times higher than what is produced by the tower itself at ground level. So And in fact, actually, your cell phone, if it can't find a signal, it works harder. It produces more energy, more radio waves, radiation, if it can't find one. So literally, if there's a tower closer, your cell phone itself is actually a safer unit too. If you're concerned about radio waves, that'll actually do that. This is sort of a bottom line here is that everything, there are a whole bunch of things, your TV, your radio, your wireless router, et cetera, all of them produce radio waves to a much greater extent than that tower will. At ground level, it's the order of hundreds to thousands of times different.
Well,
I hope that helped a little bit.
It did. Thanks.
but also, if, you know, if we did want to sell our property, I don't think there's many people who want to live within 300 feet of a cell phone tower.
You'd be surprised.
And
You'd actually be surprised by that. You'd actually be surprised by that. It's a very different circumstance.
I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but she said earlier it's hard to get the state property to put it on there. Well, maybe try harder. I don't know.
Well, we're just rehashing stuff now. So I'm going to cut off the comments and stuff. I appreciate his opinion and I do appreciate your concerns. Okay. And we'll make sure that we pass those along. Okay. Thank you.
One more thing. What side that's going to be a commercial property anyway? Because when we bought it, it was residential, all of it.
No, it was commercial.
It was?
Yeah.
More years ago?
You still have that?
How the dollars are get their other ones.
This is the dollar good. And this is commercial and has been for years.
Okay.
And this was commercial and has been for years. But the back little section of this piece of property and this piece of property were residential. So he just rezoned this one small section. It's all one lot, it's the dual zone. But the front parts have always been.
Okay.
But what was rezoned was residential.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have anything else about this we want to? Okay, but make it
Right, thank you.
sweet.
Yeah, I just wanted to step in and make a comment. I do too have concerns about the radiation aspects. And it is not true that non-ionizing radiation does not cause cancer or there are serious health effects with that. I was an aviator in the Marine Corps, flew EA-6B Prowlers, was a backseater. My expertise was in jamming radars. And we in fact had gold line canopies to help mitigate the RF stuff. The question when the RF is out there depends on the frequencies, the modulations, and the total power output. So I won't get into any more there. There are concerns. There are tons of studies out there that actually dispute that and out there. So you can, they're available online and that stuff. It's a point of consternation with lots of people that agree or disagree, but I just want to make that point.
Okay.
Is that it then?
Yes,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you for coming in. Okay, so let's move on. So everybody's going to look at this stuff, make sure you understand it, and we will have a special meeting next month on the 12th of June and go from there. Master plan review and update. I sent you guys just some other plans on the surrounding communities. And like I say, I was just really looking to have you look at the way they did theirs, the different companies consultants that were hired. There was 3 different ones. There's NEMCOG and there was Wade Trim and McKenna. McKenna did Denton Township and Roscommon Township, and they actually did theirs as a joint adventure. They have a common master plan that that basically covers the whole south shore of Higgins or Houghton Lake. But I was just see if anybody's format stood out to you. You liked it different or what have you. So just comments.
I like the first one, or it was the first one because the Roscommon Township or the village.
You like the village?
Yeah, I like that one first, but the same, that was the MCOG or whatever that did that one, MCOG. And they also did another one,
Beaver
I
Creek.
think on Beaverton. And so the format was a little bit different on that one. The Beaverton was a little bit older, but
Yeah, the Beaver
the-
Creek's older, so
Yeah. Now the
That's
township, the village has a little bit more information than, or it's a different context than our township. Just the way it's, I mean, it's more of a mini city kind of a thing. So that could have been just, had more information stuff on there, but I did like that one
okay.
better that stood out. The other ones seemed, especially the Lyon Township, which would be more similar to ours, that seemed, it was older. So some of the formatting, some of the stuff and the details, I didn't read specifics on there. It had stuff, but
Yeah,
I think it was kind of lacking compared to what we currently have in ours right now.
Yeah, it seems like there's more social, economics in the plans now than there was back in the day.
Lyon Township, one you're talking about is 2012. So that kind of tells you decade ago when we did that.
Yeah, even the Beaver Creek one was older, done by the same firm, but you could just tell it was an older format, like you noticed, Mike.
And my thoughts on it is that you could pick any one of these. You're probably gonna do a decent job. I think what we have to do is do our job to make sure that they stay on track to what we think is important in our master plan, because every one of them should be different. They shouldn't be a cookie cutter. And that's the thing I want to make sure we stay away from. Our current master plan, as old as it is still, the narrative in it is pretty relevant for where we're at today. And Higgins Lake is unique, or I should say, Garrish Township is unique from our surrounding townships just because of proximity to the lake and the demographics that we have. And so I think it's important. I like NEMCOGs, and I would have no problem working with them. I think that as times change, I did notice the same thing, that there's a lot of socioeconomic stuff that's in there that may not have been relevant before. And there's a lot more pictures and stuff, and that's okay. But it's the meat and potatoes that I want to make sure that the data in there is relevant, and it's going to be relevant for the next decade. So I'm in favor of NEMCOG, but I can work with any one of them as long as we make sure that we do our due diligent part of it. Don't just let them run with this and then give us a product and say thanks and not even understand what's in there. Because I've seen that.
Okay.
Well,
Anybody?
I've also noticed that in some of these, like they had spots for pictures to be, or some graphs to be, and they didn't have any, like, in the Beaver Creek one, they're missing like a lot of, it says, oil and gas maps, building maps, septic, some maps, wetland maps, like general forest maps, like they're all missing, they're not there. They have low caption, but there's no pictures. So, so I was kind of disappointed with the Beaver Creek one, because of that, they're missing a lot of, I think if you're going to have a caption, you should have the picture there, because pictures do tell 1,000 stories, and it's,
It could be Mike. I'm going on their websites trying to find this stuff, and it's amazing how well they hide it. You got to dig to get these things. And Beaver Creek is in the process of doing theirs. Remember, we got a notice a couple months ago that we have to send out a notice that to any adjoining township that you border gets a notice that you're redoing or doing a master plan. And they sent us one. So they're redoing theirs, and I might have got, I don't know if it was, theirs is old too.
I was just saying they were just missing a lot of.
And I don't know if it was, I just didn't have a complete set or an old draft but not making excuses, but
I mean,
I agree with you.
There's was 69 pages. I mean, they made a good effort and they had a lot of stuff in there, but they're missing some stuff where I thought. I just want to make sure we're not, that ours is complete. Ours, it does have.
There's could have been just so much that technology back then it did it probably, but sometimes when you copy stuff, the pictures don't come through or you gotta paste them again. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
It may also be that they didn't ask for them to be in there.
Right.
And that's, I mean, because you can put a lot of stuff out there and then you can list a lot of things, and
right.
They may have said, yeah, no, we don't want that or don't care about that. And that's easily overcome by when you're working with them.
Tom,
What
could I
I
ask a
did
question?
was, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say I kind of agree with what Jim said, that they all look like they assemble the same information. So it doesn't, I like the one from the village probably best of all, just from the way it presented the information. But I'm pretty sure we could work with all of them. But my question involves, what is it that we're actually expecting mechanically is to take place? I mean, I thought it was that we were going to update our plan, but does that then mean that we would choose one of these companies and they would create a new plan? And if so, would the information that we have currently be their responsibility to travel to the new plan? Or I guess just in general, I'm interested in exactly how this is supposed to look.
Well, I think in the end, we'll end up with pretty much a new plan. I think to Jim's point and mine, and I think all of us agree that the narrative that's in our existing plan is pretty accurate, other than some dates or some statistics that they're referencing needs to be updated or deleted. And we want to keep that, if we feel like that narrative up front, the stuff is worth keeping, we want it pretty much presented the same way. The biggest thing that's wrong with our current plan is the statistics are all old and out of date. And
well, there was assumptions
stuff.
that we'd have this population growth in there. It's still in the plan. It's still there, and it didn't occur. And I think you got the right R, but the wrong word. It's not what's or it's not accurate. It's what's relevant. And I think those things in there are relevant, the topics, but not necessarily currently accurate, because the data behind it's old. And if these guys have been around and they write these all the time, mm-hmm. The thing if I was doing this and I was them, the first thing I do is read the current plan and get to know what was important to those people that authored that before, and then determine if that's still relevant and we should still include those items. But they also should be going and get the demographics, the statistics, and coming up with our help, what we'd like to make sure is included in that plan. Like personally, when I look at it, there's the one thing that kind of sticks out in my mind is that it's got all these demographics, but it doesn't differentiate on home growth between those that are residents and those that are second homes. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of an important demographic. So any one of these probably going to do a fine job. We got to do our part in this and not allow somebody to come in and cookie cut it, because that's the part. Because a lot of these townships and municipalities will spend the money. The board doesn't want anything to do with it. And the only reason they're doing it is because they're supposed to do it for a grant, or they're supposed to do it because the state told them to. And then it goes and sits in a corner, just like my audit report. Usually it's my audit report and a master plan sitting in the corner, holding the door open, so I'm serious.
You guys have anything you want to add to this? Are you good at the moment?
think we collectively agreed a lot during last meeting that probably like 70 to 80% of our current master plan is still relevant, and I think like we're we just need to replace the things that that are no longer relevant, like mainly statistics, and that's where there will be two pieces. Like one will be the company that will be working or rewriting the master plan, and then us making sure that it will be, or the new plan will be relevant to our current community.
Okay.
I don't have anything more to add.
Okay.
So,
Greg, did we answer you yet?
I think it
Yes, I think I understand what we're trying to do now.
Okay. I've talked to, her name's Denise, I can't remember her last name, at NEMCOG. And remember, I gave you that price sheet, that spreadsheet that had various costs on there. They will, like if you were doing just an update, I think we've gone beyond just an update. In the sense that we're probably over 50% of it is going to get tweaked. But basically they will piece it out, and they will work on with you as far as what you want done or not. I mean, they sounded very flexible when I first talked to her. She said that she would read our plan and get back to me. Well, she didn't. She's busy. I know she is. And I just let it lay until we had a discussion on what we were doing. Because we didn't have money when we first started this. Now the township board's saying we do have enough money to cover basically a whole new plan at around 25,000. So that changes the scope of things a little bit. So the question now to me is, how do we want to go about it? Do we want to get two estimates? Do we want to interview two companies? Or are we good with going with, NEMCOG seems to be the name that keeps coming back up, of just meeting with them. Denise said what they would do is they would come to our meeting and give us a presentation, and after she's read our plan and so forth, as what she would think we need to do and so forth.
what is our policy on the single source? I mean, typically, like, just on the project,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know.
as a project manager, I'm required to collect at least and present at least 3 quotes.
Sure. Yeah.
Unless there's a justification and it needs to be approved.
Yeah, I
for
don't know what the
single source.
township policy is on that.
Oh, it's not, you're right when it comes to buying cogs, but buying services from like an attorney or a professional doesn't necessarily equate because of the expertise that you have between them.
Right.
I can double check on that. I don't, and ultimately the township board's got to approve it because we don't have the authority to approve it. We can
Correct.
make a recommendation, and so I can get that clarified, tomorrow. I know currently the threshold is 20, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound right, Jason? Jim? What's the requirement for the township to get bids? Is it 10 or 20? Is it 10? Okay. But that's for buying product, not, they don't bid out their attorney because there's a expertise there so that you get just same as like auditing.
Well, we could reach out to NEMCOG and say we're interested, and I could see if I could schedule her to meet us, and we meet her, their firm, and I guess if I was to, if we needed two, I think I would go with Wade Trim. I'm familiar with that firm. They do a lot of engineering around in the village and in the overall area. I didn't know they did these, but I looked it up, and they've got a full firm for this. They're a big firm. They're based the closest base is either Gaylord or Traverse City for sure. I think they got an office in Gaylord too.
You said Wade Trim?
Wade Trim, yep.
Wade.
Wade, W-A-D-E.
Yeah, okay. And that's separate from NCOG, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They did the, which,
They do a lot. They have an office.
they
I
did
think.
Line Township's plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Line Townships was, I thought, well done. And I think getting two quotes would be educational to all of us, actually, to hear
yeah, it,
two different sources.
and it also gives you different perspective sometimes because one may include something you didn't or other things. But I think it's advisable to do at least two quotes or you put the solicitation out there to say we're going to get this, see what you get back. But I would say you could make an offer to at least two or to submit quotes. Then the question becomes, if you do that, do you have to have like a source selection criteria kind of set up? I don't know how it works with the township. You know, I know with the government stuff you did before, you had to do, acquisition plans and it was kind of involved in great stuff, but it may not be just you come in here and, read through, but maybe we got to have some metrics if we do compare, I would think. But
I would think you'd get a presentation from both of them and you'd make your own notes and
The board would make a decision.
Price they give us is going to have a very
right. And when you do this,
variable too, but you could try to create some sort of criteria for rating each one of them based on that criteria, what we all sit around and do. But I think that I've done a lot of interviews with professionals, and you'll either warm up to one or you're not. It's not like you're measuring a product and knowing that that's within what it's got to be to fit on a machine. It's did you like what they had to say? Did you like the product that they were presenting? What's their experience? And price is going to come up too.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I tried to kind of squeeze it in. Don't we need to specify or define the scope of work first before we go and send out RFQs? I mean, we should have at least, basic scope of work, what needs to be done. And we can compare, we can interview as we send out the RFQs and we listen to the presentations. And we can
references would be very important. If we got a couple references was called, and we found out that those guys were terrible to work with. Well, then you got, that's another way of
we can research them. But at least if we have a basic scope of work, we need to at least we can send out the RFQs, and then we can, as a part of the RFQ, we can also interview the vendors.
The only thing, I don't think we really need to go that deep because basically we're going to tell them we need a master plan and they know exactly what's got to be in that master plan by law. Okay. And then if you want to add stuff, that's kind of up to you. If you think you got something else you want to say, or if you want a narrative that's 10 pages long versus 2.
Tom, you had mentioned the woman from NEMCOG, is going to read what we have and, kind of give some thoughts. I'd be interested in having, if we have two companies, each kind of look at ours and give us their thoughts on it. And
Exactly.
Well, that's what I'm thinking is this isn't their first dog and pony show. Right. They know exactly what they're going to do when they come to us to convince us to use their service. So I don't think we need to get in as deep as far as trying to figure out we want this or that. We need a master plan. We like what we got. We really like it just updated. Well, and what do you think?
Yeah, but when you do this, when you do the contract, whatever, you got to have something that specifies what the product or services, and that was
at least high level.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you're saying, and the same thing. I mean, and even like the questions and stuff I was talking, you could have just a basically a couple of questions that we take off, and you look at it from 1, the technical response, 2 is the references, and then 3 is like the interview stuff, and then you could have the 4th one being the cost, and you could weigh those. Those could be the 4 general areas, and you could have a couple things, but whether or not you put it formally down, you're essentially doing that. You're kind of weighing it in your head, and going to have something. So when we do the the contract stuff we'd spell. That'd be
Well,
spelled
like I
out.
said, they're gonna have it. I'm assuming they're professionals. They're doing this. So my other question is, if we, if they agree to come and make a presentation to us, do we want them both the same night?
I think so.
Okay. I just didn't know if that was an issue or not, but.
The question are there, since we do it online and it's for the public anyways, if you're trying to do it, you don't want to have somebody, see the other persons. You can't do that in this process. So that would, same night would be sufficient, I think.
Right. So I just text Brian to just get his input. I figured that cut to the chase. He believes we should do a bid process because it's over 10,000.
Okay.
Here's my thought. The way to approach this. Get an RFQ together, like you mentioned. Send it out to at least 3 of these. I think that's all we've got at the population right now. We need at least 2. So get written responses back, from each of them, and they could then come in and meet with us. So we'll get at least 2. And maybe we'll find a third one. If we put the RFQ out, if we post it on our website, and on Facebook, I guess, because he has that capability, we may get another hit, but at least we'll have at least 2 bids. Because he would like to see that if it's over 10.
Okay, not a problem. That's why I wanted to get this all straight so we could
So I
keep moving forward.
we got to, that's the one job we got to do is put together a request for proposal.
Tom, I'd like to say too that I think Val's idea is something that I agree with. I think that it's kind of incumbent upon us to put together some sort of outline about what we expect to get, even under the assumption that they all do this all the time and they know what they have to do. I still think it's good to point some things out, only because in my past, I've seen where if you don't point certain things out, it's surprising, but it does happen that certain things aren't covered a certain way. So even if it's how something might be covered, that would be our instruction, so to speak, to the people that we're giving the RFQs to. And I would like to suggest also that we choose at least 3. And I also find that you do learn things from how people respond to the RFQs. So if we give everyone the same information, if that's what we send out, it'll tell us something to see how they respond. So I'd like to see us do that. And I think that there were 3 companies at least here that in the things that you'd sent us. And even if those were the only 3 we sent out to, I do think that having more of those rather than trying to stay on a low number is better for us long term.
Did you say there were only 2
Okay,
companies?
thanks, Greg.
Tom, did you say?
No, there's a third one. It's called McKenna. Pretty big firm. They're based around the state. I think their closest office, I think they have one in Saginaw. But I think their main headquarters is suburb Detroit or Grand Rapids or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. So, well, we could do that. Let's, I guess just get with Jason and the office staff and put something together because I don't know how to write one of those. So that's out of my wheelhouse.
Jason will write our RFQ.
I do think if they do come to us and present, you'd get a pretty good feel for what they're going to do, what they include, and then we could add to it from there. But you can start jotting things down if you want.
Want Jason put together or?
I have no idea.
Well, somebody in the building does.
No, they don't. They don't.
I can chip in and.
Why would they not be?
Who was part of the,
I
was part of the process?
I can put together something, like a 1-pager kind of thing with the RFQ, and then there'd be like some instruction on here's what we want submitted,
You're going into way too much detail, Mike. You're a detailed guy, but let's keep it simple. Definitely one page, one page. I know, but then you started adding. I mean, you want to ask for stuff that you don't, you're making this harder than it needs to be.
We can review, like, I mean, if Mike
Yeah,
proposes.
I'd say if you want, I can take and review. I've worked with
We collectively
sort of thing
can
as well.
review.
and we could put something together. My thought would be is like, if we sent them the, request for proposal and we don't have to like put our whole, last, report or, master plan in there, but we could have it available through a link. And then all they do is get the information from the link.
Right.
And then provide us a written or via email response. We may get some Dear John side of some, they may be too busy.
Exactly.
Or they will say, if the timeline is within 3 months, we're not going to respond. So, but I think, my conversation with Brian via text here was he'd like to see 2, but preferably 3
Yep, no problem.
responses. And I think we could still post it, on our website. We can still post it on the Facebook, not necessarily going to get any hits, and maybe there's some other trade. Do you have, MTA maybe, I don't know if they have a post. There's a blog on there that I get every day from them. And they may have some other potential suitors that are within their experience.
They might even have a form on there already.
There
Request
is.
for
I've
proposal.
seen one somewhere. There is one out there. I think we just need to make sure we tailor it to Garrish Township. But
Okay, so you and Mike want to work together on that?
I don't have a problem reviewing it or having some input.
draft together.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And then I can help.
Then you can send it to everybody once you guys,
Yeah.
you have it. Okay.
Yeah. And the question is, when do you want it? Like by next.
I mean, if we could
meeting?
have this done
Next
by the
meeting.
next meeting, then we can,
Have it so everybody reviews it by the next meeting for the.
it'd be nice if we could just keep it moving, but it's not there's no set time limit. on
We're
it.
not making any dire decisions. If we wanted to roundtable it via email, and then if everybody's in agreement with that via that way, we could send that out at any time without having to come back to a meeting. I think it's important when we start scheduling people, then we gotta, but I think to get that RFP out,
Sounds good to me.
I don't know, anybody's thoughts on that?
If everybody's on board, yeah. I mean, we don't have to have a meeting in order.
Because ultimately, when this comes down to the end, we're gonna make a recommendation. The township board's gonna be the one that'll decide
Right.
whether that's gonna fly or not. I don't see why they wouldn't, but it just,
Then the actual, the plan will be written. That's when we want to make sure that it will be written, geared towards.
I think everybody should have their input on what we're requesting in there.
Typically if I remember doing the master plan, you did it in chapters, sections. You don't try to do the whole thing at once. You go through, this part and
Right. And there's public hearings too, I believe, or
And
There is
solicitations from the public.
to
Yeah.
approve
There's
it.
a whole bunch of
adopt it.
steps in there.
Yeah, I mean,
So there's a process.
in the rec department, I think they've got theirs right now. Or their plan out for review. And Greg,
You guys were part of the original, right? You, Mike.
I wasn't here
Greg,
for the original.
Greg,
He was as
Jim. You were
Me
here?
and Jim.
You and Jim, Greg was on. Well, then,
but
you already have experience. You'll be guiding us.
yeah.
I'm trying to.
We'll be relying.
But Greg's wife Susan did the rec one, and that's out for review right now. So it's another point of how do they go about doing it.
Okay, so that's the action then.
Well,
Keep an eye on your emails. We good?
yeah.
Okay. Moving on, the septic system ordinance discussion. I'm glad you're here. Mr. Osley. Have you done anything? Why don't you come up to the mic? I sent you some stuff that we had flogged around some months ago.
Yeah, I briefly
probably
looked
the
over,
most extensive one I found so far is from the Torch Lake Township, Antrim County. It's a police power ordinance and it's a septic inspection and property transfer ordinance. So that's one thing township will have to decide if they want that bit in there or not. But it's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, I agree. That looked like what you sent me, that looked like the one that was probably the top of the.
And I couldn't remember if I'd sent it to all you guys or not.
Which one was it? Yeah. Torch Lake.
Torch Lake Township. If I did, it's been a while.
Mention the names.
No, that one you did, yeah.
Yeah, he's got it. I can resend it.
Yeah, that was the meeting before. I mean, I'd like to weigh in a little bit on what the health of Higgins Lake that I've been working on and specifically the septic chunk of it that's within that project. Not to get too far into, they're already into the nuts and bolts of it, but a little bit different than most ordinances that are written there. I would like to see first of all, the health department is in the process of updating their database and to include all of the paper files that they have in the file cabinets, getting them on a computer, and then you will be able to query that computer and that map to see where there are current septic inspections that are done and the condition of each and every lot that's out there. And you'll be able to, more importantly, see the ones that don't have any information on them. And I think getting that information on record is really important. That's one of the key things that needs to happen. And to do that, I was hoping we could have the health department start on the north end of the township, sections 1 through 6 and 7 through 12, and do all that information, get all of their information on their computers with those first 12 sections from the beginning, and then continue to move on down through the rest of the township. And once those were done, I think the township would, as a part of, maybe the first part of this is as a preamble to the ordinance, maybe, that says we're going to go out and now we can identify the properties that don't have any information on them and get a letter off to those people and say, we don't have your information. You need to go out and voluntarily go out and have an inspection done and have it done by a certified inspector and get it updated into the county's, the health department's database, and bring it up to specs like the rest of them. And that's going to get some of them. Who knows how many. Then we're going to have some people that go, there's no way I'm going to do that. And then that's about the time that the ordinance would have to kick in and say, okay, if you don't have an inspection, the ordinance requires you to have that inspection done in the next 6 months or done by such and such a date, and compel people to do it as a part of the police ordinance. You'll get a bunch more that comply. And then of course you'll have some that don't. And after that, you have to decide if you want to go after those, or if that number is small enough that it can be ignored or lived with or whatever. You have to decide at that point. But I'm not sure that the first part of that ordinance, the first part of getting those letters out and getting those people notified, if that becomes a part of your ordinance. I don't see it in other ordinances as doing it that way. But by doing that, you're going to catch everybody. Everybody that's out there is going to get a letter that says that you need to get your septic in compliance with the health department.
Whether they do it or not, that remains to be seen, but they need to do that. Versus a time of sale, who knows when that's going to be? And specifically to pick on people up in the camps on the north end of the lake, those properties have been in the property and the families for, for 100 years now, and they're going to be there 100 years hence, and we'll never see anything at a time of sale. But this other way, we go out and those could be, not all of them by any means, but some of those are going to be the culprits that everybody talks about, that we really need to get to the bottom of those. And those kind of properties are all the way around the lake. So they'd stay in the family, or Artesia Beach here, there's lots of places that will probably never sell. So anyway, that's the difference. That's the one thing that I want to keep an eye on, that as you go forward, that hopefully you agree with that, and that's the way we go. And if you don't, I gotta shut up pretty soon, because I'm starting to tell people that that's, when they're asking me about it, that's what I'm telling them what we'd like to do. So
If I can mention, that's in essence what Lyon Township's ordinance was until it got rescinded, was they basically did it on if they had records for you and how long ago you had the system was put in, and there was you had different time frames in which you had to get an inspection by. And
right.
Just if you folks don't know, just in the last week, the Central Michigan District Health Department issued a report on the 720 some of inspections. That were done. Approximately a third of the probably homes there, I think, of the 721 were actually had reports on, and it's interesting to look at. But so, I mean, the way Lyon did it makes a lot of sense to me, and it's along the lines of what Jim said. We get to the ones.
Lions was really close to what
Yeah, that's
there
really
wasn't really anything wrong with that, other than there was what had the real heartache with it was they had a clause for a replacement system had to be a high performance system, and that really rubbed people the wrong way. And I think that was the biggest demise of the whole ordinance.
And this board is at the pleasure of the township board, and I can tell you, I think I can't speak for everybody, but I think the temperament of our board at the township level is not to go with a point of sale, to be more proactive than that, because it just wouldn't be effective. And whatever we end up doing as far as how often the inspections, I don't know. That's never been discussed, but I think the temperament is, look, if you're going to do this, do it right. Don't make it point of sale, because it just, as I think Brian used the term, it's 100-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's not gonna be effective. And I think Bill Carey has offered to help us with this ordinance. He says he's got drafts that he's going to share with us. Can't tell you when, but I know that he said he would do that.
Jim? That Jim.
Yes, sir.
Do you, now I forgot what I was going to say. It's gone.
Well, where you're thinking of it, what Jim was saying, in the minutia is, how old do those reports have to be before they become outdated? I had my septic inspected 10 years ago and it's still good. Maybe that's good. Or 12 years ago, what's that number? Those are the kind of things that are open for discussion for sure. But that's once again in kind of the nuts and bolts of the ordinance itself.
I remember what I was going to ask you. Have you got any idea from anybody on what they would charge to do the inspection that you feel is required? The level of inspection that you want?
I have an idea. I've talked to at least one contractor. I've talked to two, but I got prices out of one of them, and it was around $700 for. That's pretty much in the line of if we did the same thing that Lyon did.
So that would include boring of the field and taking a sample of this and that.
Yeah.
I will tell you, talking to people in Lyon Township, they weren't all done consistently
that's
there.
Right.
And I would certainly hope if we talk about this, that there's some kind of checklist or,
There's
you
gotta
know,
be.
minimum standards that are going to be used by everybody.
That's the only way you're going to establish a real cost
Right.
and a consistent cost. Because to me, if you're going to legislate that you have to have an inspection, then the cost to me seems like it's got to be fairly equal across the board unless you've got some system that is above and beyond, like a raised field system where they got a pump and different thing.
Well, everyone's going to have to pump to clean it out. So you're talking at least $350 just to clean it
that's-
out for them to come look at it.
What you're saying is exactly what I was about to get at, is that I don't know how often you're supposed to pump your tanks. But let's just say it's every 10 years. I don't know. But
They recommend every 2 to
so if
3.
you're gonna spend $350 to pump your tank, which you should have done anyways, so the $700 is just that marginal difference to have the inspection.
Why do you think it has to be pumped?
I don't
for
know.
inspection?
No, anytime if they open the thing up to look at it, because if they do the inspection, they want to look at the tank itself.
You need to see.
They got
And they need, you see the bottom.
See the bottom. of the tank.
Even if
You can tell if a tank's leaking just by looking at the inflow and the outflow. If that water is down the outflow isn't right at the bottom of that pipe, if it's down, there's a leak somewhere. Because when a drop of water goes in, a drop of water goes out.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you could pump it and you're not going to see the bottom of that tank because they don't get them that clean.
Yeah, they do. I've had ours. We pump ours every couple of years, and we've had several.
Okay, but anyway,
But they're also looking for roots, and there's
but we need
different
to
sections.
establish that somehow criteria and a cost.
And then the time frame.
Remembered right that cost breaks down by, I'll probably get the numbers a little wrong, but the inspector gets 400 of it. I think this was in Lyon's case. I think the inspector might get $400 to do the work. 150 goes to the health department to then review it and update their records and do what they have to do with it. And I'm pretty sure that in their case, Lyon kept the remainder for their inspector and to administer it on their end. So that's kind of how that $700 breaks down.
Yeah, to me, it's not unreasonable, but
No.
That's where you're going to get the biggest pushback.
When you get, like you said, if you need to have it done every few years, every 4 years even, you got $350 of that $750 that goes to the pumping that you got to have done anyway. So just have the inspection done, and it's not that much more.
Everybody will be a variable because I think looking at the statistics I did see on some of these other master plans, Garrish Township was coming in at like 60% not fully occupied homes. So you got 60% of the housing stock is part-time. So they're going to argue that, hey, we're only using it for 6 months out of the year and that kind of thing,
Probably, yeah.
So you're going to get all just playing devil's advocate here a little bit.
Maybe there's an argument about how often you have to pump it then. I think an inspector can give you an idea how often it should be pumped by the condition it's in too. Some people's are just, pristine when they open them up and you see, hey, you're good for 6 years. And another guy that yours is a mess, you better get this done every 2 years or whatever. I think they can weigh in on it. I don't know how you legislate that, but once again, things to think about.
Hell in the details.
Just as an FYI, Eagle, it has several online webinars they do, and there's one on the septic one next week, I believe.
Yeah, I think that one has to do with some reimbursement for low income or something.
Right. It was on-site septic system replacement. That was on the 21st.
I took that class. It was not a class. It was
It's a 1 hour webinar. It's 10 o'clock or that you can.
It's interesting, but it was mostly geared to indigenous people in Arizona. That's what it was for, these Indian reservations that needed to have something done with no money, and that money was going to help that. So I don't think, it's worth looking at, but I'm not sure it's going to have a lot to do with around here.
Yeah.
So my question would be, what do you want from us at this point? Anything, or just gather information, or?
Well, we are taking the next steps with the Health of Higgins Lake project in over the next 2 weeks. And then we'll have the subcommittees kicked off and off doing their work. And I kept the septic committee for myself, just because I knew this was coming up. Instead of handing that off, I kept it for myself. So I'm starting to work on it in the next couple of weeks, much stronger than, or much more than I have been in the past. So maybe I'd ask if what I've mentioned, if that makes sense, or if there's any pushback or consternation about, doing it, what I said, having this first chunk of it that's getting some letters out and getting people to understand, or do you need to get a ordinance cooked up right from the very beginning? And if you're okay with what I said, we'll just keep moving along. And I guess probably take a look at Torch Lakes for one, and see if that can be the bones of an eventual ordinance. And then get started with, I think we need to have an ordinance starting to get working on an ordinance soon.
So some
What
cut
kind
and
of,
paste and edit and see what we come up with.
Yeah.
what kind of time frame were you looking at for inspections that you talked about that? Because you said stuff would go concurrently with the ordinance development.
But those inspections would have to.
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, there's going to be the health record aspect, and then people come in the voluntary inspections, and then the mandated, and then the ordinance. So are you talking the summer, or are you talking fall, or?
Finishing up with Lyon Township right now. They wanted to get that done. They're awful close. There's volunteer help that have been trained, and they're working on it every day now, and they're finishing that up, and then they're going to move over to Garish in the next few weeks. They'll start on Garish, and then they'll go through that. It's going to take them probably 4 months.
So are they inspecting
No,
this stuff?
just getting the data into the.
Yeah, just going to the township and getting like the property card stuff and.
Well, they've got access to the scanned file. They took the file cabinets and scanned all that information and put it in the computer. And now these volunteers are taking that scanned file and entering it into what they call Fetch GIS, which is the
mapping
database,
program. Yeah.
the database that they're using.
Okay, so it's
After
not,
that's done, then we can work with Fetch GIS, but until then,
yeah, it's not going to knock on people's doors to say, hey,
No,
can you
no,
go
no,
open
no.
this up? And because that's the other concern I have about some of them, just if they do these things, then you say, okay, you've got to put one in or get a new one. Then it's like, when is that time frame? And all of a sudden you're talking this year, and people's budgets and that kind of stuff. Those things can be fairly expensive, especially for some.
Yeah, I was in a meeting with Steve King a few months ago on this, and who's the director of the Central Michigan District Health Department, but he's like, our files are all over the map. There's some properties we have no information on it. Other ones, it might be a sketch done 35 years ago that you can't even tell what's where. And there's some detailed ones. So they just want to get a handle on what they have and get that all inputted. And then we'll know. And you can start with places where there are no records, right? And places that might have over 20 years ago or whatever.
That's new.
Yeah.
I think we'll know, I guess maybe answer the question, we'll know by the end of summer. I'd say by about the end of summer, we'd be ready to start sending out some letters to people that we know don't have reports.
I wonder, we're going to have basically, we'll call it free mail for you coming July 1st. If you wanted to get something in the Gazette that had to do with, hey, have you pumped your septic recently? And maybe just put a little blurb in there to get people thinking about doing something. Because you could get in there, as you know, I mean, we already got a fixed cost to get that out. And that's every property owner in the township.
But if you did something like that, I think you need to specify, you don't want people all of a sudden go out, okay, yeah, I need to do it and empty their tank out. Then 6 months later they come out and says, nope, you got to empty your tank out again. So if
we would have to have some policy about, who these inspectors are. We have to list of approved inspection people. So that people, because when they see that article, they're going to call up and say, well, who are these inspectors, and
yeah. And then my concern there is you get double, like somebody will go and get their pump tanked, in good faith. And then, right away thinking, yeah, we got to do it. But then all of a sudden, 6 months later, they come out and says, no, we need to, it's got to be pumped when the inspector comes out there again.
Yeah, they gotta know the difference between pumping their tank. and
I'm just
being
saying,
inspected.
if you wanted some
Sure.
sort of
Yeah.
the first,
Salvo.
a salvo,
It's coming, yeah.
you've got an opportunity to put it in there. I'll wait to put it in there. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me. I'm just saying, there's an opportunity to not spend any money to get it mailed out.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Mary Ann asked me for some verbiage for the Gazette, and maybe I take a little chunk of that and, get just that in there along
Yeah.
with it. So,
And then the other thing with the cost of them pumping out, I know that some of them, they end in October. And if you get your stuff done during the winter, there's a premium because they got to ship it down to,
yeah.
a ways away.
So I think,
Hey, Jim, I have a question.
Go ahead, Greg.
So once all the information, and I think you said it would take about 4 months for the health department information from paper files to be put into the fetch format. How much do we feel? Maybe this is a bad question, but how much do you feel will even be done at that point? Is it going to be 20% that we don't have, or 40% that we don't have, or does that when the big project starts, or is that the bulk of it?
in 4 months, I was suggesting that in 4 months, we had the northern third of the township in Fetch GIS, and we could start sending letters to those people. That was my wild ass timeframe.
All right, so maybe to do the entire township would take a year to get all the things entered?
Yeah, I would think they'll have it all entered. I bet they have everything entered by the end of the year.
And is there any idea about how much will be missing at that point when all the paper files are entered? What are we left with?
Yeah, I actually met with one of the people that's doing this entering today. I met with Sue Gelderblum, and she said there's a lot of stuff missing, and I think we're going to find a lot of holes and a lot of empty spots. It depends also on how far back you go. There's reports or inspections or installation records from the 80s or the 70s. I'm not going to call those good, I don't think, and so those are going to have to be in that pile that have to be updated. But we need to talk about that too, as to how far back we go and when people are compliant, or where do they start where they're not compliant.
Might be worth looking at Lions again, because I think they had a breakdown of how old it was or whatever.
Lions was pretty aggressive. That was another thing too. I
Yeah.
think they were pretty aggressive and pretty short term. If you were more than a few years old, you had to redo it, and that didn't sit too well with people. Maybe that's the right answer, though. I don't really know. I think generally you'd find that it's more like 6 or 7 or 8 years that you would start looking at having to have a inspection, or maybe 10 years.
It's not just age, though. Part of it is what type of system it is you need to know, because we have some that don't really have fields. There's quite a few around here that have
Dry wells.
So if you want that information, that's still valid information.
Yeah.
Should be on the permit.
Yeah. Maybe.
It should be.
Are dry wells compliant?
Yes. They're allowed.
Yeah, I know they're allowed. Are they going to continue to be a compliant? And, we gotta be able to answer that question, people, because some people say, no, they're not. And so you got to have the data that says, yeah, they are allowed and they're okay. So
If the state permits them, why wouldn't they be allowed?
the state also permits, is it a septic that can be, it's required, the state requires 1,000 gallons, but as far as the health department is concerned, if it's 500 gallons, it's close enough. There's the health department is very lenient on some of their requirements compared to what the state specs are. So, is our ordinance going to be in line with the state ordinance or with the county, or do we have our own?
And one of the ways around that, you could have, different sizes require, different periods of time to pump out. And even that's, dependent upon the usage of the people.
1,000 gallon tank only needs it every 6 years, and a 500 is every 3 years.
Yeah, you could do something like that. But even then, if you have, it depends on the traffic and the, usability, you could have.
I think the real issue is going to get into, well, there's going to be a lot of real issues, but the one that's going to be is the proximity issue. So you go drive around here and see some of the very condense, densely populated areas around here, and there's no way that there's 50 feet from wells and septic.
Yeah, and with the buildings on
tanks.
there, I
And-
know
and-
that
and there's
property's
just,
like that.
so that's a whole nother issue that I think that's got to get dealt with too.
Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like they're capturing that information in this data that they're bringing up. They're making a note if there's a well there.
If
but
they have a well, they're doing it, but they're not, yeah. You're just taking the existing records that they have, which they may or may not have well information on.
Right. So that well piece of it is another piece of what we're looking at is we wanted to get domestic water wells tested. And as a health, it's not so much as a health of the lake piece of it, but as a ongoing public health issue is what's the condition of our domestic water wells in the whole township, every place in the township. And but I think we've got our plate pretty full just dealing with the septic ordinance right at this point, and then we'll follow that along with the wells, I think.
Well, the state of Michigan, not too long ago, probably a year ago, they had, if you emailed in, they actually had a site set up where you could request a test kit to get your well water tested.
Yeah.
And I did, request one. I did receive it. You had like 2 weeks to take your sample and turn it in. And I did that. So, I mean.
My concern with that is, and because we had that similar discussion about, well, we'll just get, we'll just go to Home Depot and order 1,000 kits and pass them out and let people turn them in. But the health department won't take those. They won't take the results of that and put it in there. They're going to want it done by a certified inspector and know that the chain of custody is right and the timing's right and where it was taken is right and make sure that the data they get in there is legit. And
Correct.
that doesn't really, may not do that, in that scenario.
Did you do the free testing?
It was free testing, yep.
Oh, because I usually do I just
how
take
they
my
come up?
sample.
I think that's a good
Awesome.
idea. I mean, it gives you a good idea if you see that there's something wrong.
I
None-
pay.
no
I just drop it,
contaminants,
drop it off.
can
I pick up the sample
detected.
kit. Because
But I don't think it's something we can do and start to have legislation over and ordinances that, that say your supplies because you took your test by yourself. I don't think that's gonna work.
Well, but it comes from the health department.
It came from the health department and they certified it?
That's what.
Well, if that works, if they'll put it in their records and call it, or did it come from Raven? Or did it come from?
No. I go to the health department in
Like,
Houghton Lake.
Yeah.
Pick it up, or Prudentville. Pay for the test kit, come home, pour water from the well, drop it off, and 2 days later, they provide the results.
but then were those results, did they put it into their Fetch GIS? Did they include those? Yeah, right. And if that's the case, then I'm all wet, but that's not my understanding of what they would accept.
My guess is you just paid them for a service for your own peace of mind, not
Right.
necessarily for.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not recording that officially in their records because it's unofficially been obtained. I would guess that's, you're probably right.
And then what are you checking for? Usually it's not there's different levels of testing you can do. You can get into nitrates and everything else. So it's a
Whole nother bunch of questions, yeah.
Yes.
And
PFAS, pharmaceuticals, phosphates, nitrates. Yes, no, on which ones? I don't know, that's a whole nother chunk. Yeah, I think we'll just let that one sort of be in the background, but if we can get past the septic and get to a point where people are feeling like, because I hear from quite a few people that say, we really need to do something about this septic ordinance and get an ordinance and get the septics tested. And so hopefully that's what we get, we make some progress to that here in the next.
Compliance is going to be the challenge.
I have a question just for the affirmation. So since we're pushing so hard, septic, so we're completely getting then sewer off the table.
Well, I think sewer is a totally different question. Right now, septics, in the short term, septics are something we can deal with. I think there's a lot of questions about whether yet to be answered yet about whether we need a sewer system, what that sewer system looks like, sewer systems, what is it? We don't know, but that's not what we're working on now. The results of what hopefully this Health of Higgins Lake project and the science committee comes up with will start to guide that discussion about what if a sewer system is needed, and if so, what's it look like? But in the meantime, we can do something about the septic systems, and everyone that we can bring up to spec is, I think, is a plus.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
I just think it's great.
Adam, when you get a chance to see, whenever it gets, I don't know if it's, you guys have seen it, but the report from Line, it gives you a pretty, even though it's a third of the tanks, you get or third of the properties tested, gives you a pretty good overview of what's going on everywhere. It really does. Yeah.
There's no reason to think that there's any different over here either. We're gonna see the same kind of percentage results over here, I think. And
Sounds good.
okay.
Anybody else got anything else for the order? Jim, did you have anything that you wanted to,
On the,
from the township
from the
board? or anything?
township's putting the short-term rental on our agenda for the next work session, so we are gonna start digging into that, and then you'll get some feedback. Something that came up, matter of fact, that she had came in here, Jenny Walker, because I think she was our last. I don't know if it was this meeting or if it was the township meeting, but she has a short-term rental on her property, and it's part-time. I mean, it's not like a full-blown business, and she was asking about the cost, because she thought it was cost prohibitive because she only was taking in so many few $1,000s a year. And so I took it upon myself and I called Julie Tatro, our assessor, to ask her some questions regarding PREs for people that's principal residence exemption for people that may be renting out part of their house, which it's acceptable to do that. So we might want to, and I'll probably talk to our board about this, but we might want to consider a reduced fee for those that have, if they apply and they have a principal residence exemption on the property they're applying for, mainly because from our standpoint, there's less probably compliance work because they're living there. They're not going to have some of the issues that all the other ones would have, but it is something to consider. She had asked a reduced fee based on reduced income, and I don't think we want to get into any sort of form of asking people to tell us how much they grossed and worrying about whether it's accurate or not. But a PRE is very simple. You can verify that right off of the property. So that is something to consider, but that is going to be on our agenda. Other than that, it's the board's behind whatever we want to start doing with the master plan. I did notice there's a public or a bill to squash the A1 or the PA 133. Is that the one for the renewable ordinance?
Yeah.
33. But there is a bill out there right now. They're trying to.
I thought it passed.
I don't know. It passed one section. It's
One
it's
house.
not gone.
Okay, the House or the Senate's passed it.
There's not much that's gonna pass. I mean, there's stuff that can pass one house to the other, but.
Yeah, I don't know, but I noticed
that
that's out there
Yeah.
because I know we're kind of put the renewable energy back on the back burner.
Well, that was just to give the townships back some control over the.
But other than that, I
Site.
can't think of anything else to report from.
Okay.
our end.
Very good.
Just a couple, we got one ZBA coming up this Monday. We got two the following Monday and another one TBD sometime in June. So we're kicking off a lot faster. And
You're
more.
busy.
Yeah. And the other thing is for Mike and I our terms expire on 1 July. And Brian just sent a thing out. We both responded. We'd be interested in continuing. I don't know if there's follow-up stuff if we have to do like a formal application or if that was sufficient.
The planning commission, if I'm not mistaken, is appointed strictly by the supervisor. And so it doesn't have to go in front of the full board. So I'm not sure what his.
Yeah,
Okay, I thought
think
we
you're all
got-
set.
Yeah, but we probably still need to do a swearing in formally. And find something for the township.
I don't know.
We did in the past when we came.
I've been
on here.
sworn at, but I don't think I've been sworn in.
Well, and the other thing, I don't know if I have an ID card that was issued at the county building, but it says Garish, I'm on the planning commission and also so for the ZBA. And I don't know if you guys ever gotten one. And it's something because we've had a turnover, so I'm the one that's been contiguous. You guys had more experience on there. But anyways, that was something that we had, and I can show you an example of it. It's just, another ID card. But if you're doing site property visits or something like that, it's kind of a formal thing, says you're with Garish Township and do that. And that was something that there was.
Don't shoot.
Yeah. But it's something that kind of, we had COVID, a lot of people came on in COVID and that stuff. So I have one from previous and then everybody else has turned over since then. So and nobody's mentioned it. So I'll show you afterwards. But that's something that I think the township basically puts a letter into the county building and says, hey, can you
I don't know anything about it.
you go down there, but that's available. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Case broker.
Good meeting.
8:37.